The book that I actually started, I read this book, actually I listened to this book, yes. I listened to this book on audiobook over the summer. And there's a lot of details, but it's read by the author, and it was great. And so I said, okay, I've now listened to it. So then I ordered the book. I listened to it again. I read it.
Wow.
Because it really spoke to me in a way. It really helped me understand the psychology that goes about in what happens to us when we get into teams or into groups or into parties or whatever you want to. It relates to politics, but it can also relate to other portions of our life. And it really spoke to me, and it made some things very clear about the way I was interacting with things, which I imagine would also translate to you, how you interact with things as well. And so I came away from it with saying, you know what, I've got to do some form of a program here at St. Patrick's that looks at what's going on in us. And this book is titled The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. And it has and I've actually read a book that he quotes in here called Darwin's Cathedral. So I'm actually going to be talking about some Darwin stuff as we go through this series together, because the question is that he asks is, why do we have religion? And he says it's really an evolutionary process. We need religion, and we need the communities in which we gather, like the one we're in right now.
Amen.
That helps us move forward. It helps those people who are in groups like that actually move forward into the world better prepared for things. They interact with each other better. So that's a really important piece of what I took from this book. So over this time, now I'm going to be introducing things as we go along, and this portion is a lot about kind of the beginning section of this book. But I want to introduce a little bit about Jonathan Haidt, who is he has a PhD in psychology. He has studied at Yale and the University of Chicago, and he's accomplished. He was the professor when he wrote this book. He was a professor at UVA, and he was teaching moral psychology and doing research on this. So he was not only teaching, he was also a researcher. And he is now currently at the New York University, and he is the Thomas Cooley Professor of Ethical Leadership, is his title. So this is the kind of work that he's focused in on, and this book was published in 2012. And if you read the book or listen to the book, he says that he was inspired to write this book while he was in the midst of the 2004 election cycle, and he was favorable toward the presidential candidate John Kerry, but he was frustrated with John Kerry because John Kerry didn't know how to talk to people from the other side of the aisle. He could hear it in what he was saying, and he was like, if you want to do that, you need to talk like this. And John Kerry couldn't do it. And he was saying that is what happens is people cannot talk to each other over this chasm that exists in our country. And he knows why. And so then he applied what he had done in research, but also did extensive research that took him from 2004 to 2012. He did extensive research to figure out and do tests to figure out what was happening inside of people's minds. So that is just a little bit of an introduction to this book. I would recommend it. It was in the Wednesday email. There was a link to it that you can pick it up. It gives some historical pieces, it gives some practical pieces, and it talks about these kind of issues. But it is dense. I mean, it's not something you just pick up and you say, "Oh, I'm going to read a couple pages." You've got to focus in on it. So that's, even though it is written for a wide audience. And I think the audiobook is pretty good, because he reads it himself. So here's some of the first things that he talks about. And the statement, the metaphor that he has is intuitions come first, strategic reasoning comes second. So think about that. Think of just those words. Think about what that means. So the question is that he was asking, and then details this out, and I'm not going to go into the detail he goes into because I don't have enough time. But he says, where do our morals come from? And there's a lot of questions about this because different people define morality differently. Because we have a diverse world, and people in the United States differ greatly from people who live in India or in Brazil or in other places around this world. People think about morals differently, or they categorize actions differently. So sometimes we would think, oh, that's not even a moral question, where other people would say, oh, that's totally morals. So that's what he's trying to play with. Where do we get those things, and how do we? So he was doing research on this. Is it innate? So does it happen because we were born? Is it learned by passing it on from generation to generation through from parents to children, or from schools to children, or from communities to children, or from churches from children to children? Is it a learned activity? Or is it reason? If a child is just dropped into a situation, if they have some basic experiences, figure it out? And he's playing these things out. Now he and Kim over here and Beth have read the book. Kim's read the book. He's going, this is exactly right. So he said, okay, I'm going to lay all of these out, and we're going to look and see where does this come from. He determined innate, not going to happen. It doesn't just happen because we're born. The realm of psychology that happened from the 60s and 70s up until more recently was very much into that it was reasoned. If you put children together, they will figure it out. And it comes from Kohlberg, and if you follow the psychological lines, it comes from Kohlberg and Piaget, and what they were saying is that, just put them together, and over time, they will learn based upon their experiences. So they will interact with people, they'll pick it up. What he says here is that we're born righteous, but we have to learn what exactly people like us should be righteous about. So this is that's the answer to, he's done all of this research, and I'm boiling it down to a quick sentence, which he does a really good job of. He sums up all of his chapters at the end of them, and he puts it in very quick to learn things here. But we're born righteous, so we have this right. We want to be righteous. We innately will want to be righteous, but we have to learn it through the experience. Through experience, primarily parent to child, or church to child, or some form of community with our children. We're passing this forward. And so this is, as we think about this, intuitions come first, strategic reasoning second. We will continue this because this is an extremely important piece. Now I'm going to go through a little bit of history in philosophy. So we have Plato. Plato was a long time ago, right? Long time ago. Before even Charlie was born. Really? Yeah, that's right. So Plato was all about reason. You can reason these things out. You can build your arguments this way. A more recent, somewhat in Charlie's range, Jefferson, the founder of UVA. We have said, okay, reason into intuition. So we have a head and heart, and they're arguing with each other. They're having a discussion with each other all the time. So that's what Thomas Jefferson was saying. But he says, and this is again spelled out over an entire chapter, he says that David Hume actually wins this argument through his research and the testing that he did psychologically. That Hume wins in the philosophy of this. Reason is the servant of the passions. And this is going to be important as we go, because people will create a reason for the way they feel it should be. They will create reasons. They will imagine reasons. They will jump over mountains to create reasons in order to defend their intuitions. And this is the issue that we have in play when we're dealing with politics or religion or any of those kinds of things that we get on a bandwagon with. When we're on the bandwagon, we are creating reasons to be on that bandwagon that may not actually make sense if we were to remove ourselves from the rush of things. If we were to step away, we would go, what? And then we also, at the same time, are making up reasons to not like the other side. So the same thing is happening in both directions. And we create those reasons that, if we were to step away, we would say, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But we want to make them make sense because our intuitions win. The passions that we have deep down built into us are winning this thing. And reason is a servant of those things. Now, Nancy's going, what? So he uses, and I mentioned this in my Wednesday email, he uses this metaphor of the elephant and the rider. The elephant is our passions. The elephant moves quickly and often does not turn quickly. I've never ridden an elephant, but I can only imagine that they are not fast turners. It kind of like other than a ship is somewhat has energy. I mean, it's the same thing as a big ocean liner. Doesn't make quick turns. So when the servant, which is reason, so the servant is riding on top of the elephant. When the servant is reasoning, comes back empty-handed, the master, intuition, doesn't change his judgment. So the master continues going. The elephant continues to move, no matter what the rider is thinking. So the rider's up there going along, and the rider will create reasons in order to support these things. Wes, are you confused? You going with me?
Wait. Just stay on the...
Yeah, and there's no chance that the rider's going to fall off.
I'm with you. I'm just tired.
Just tired. I can understand.
That elephant too long, right?
It's not a confused look. It's very tired look.
So then moral reasoning, so if we go back to our morals and the things that we have been taught by and we've learned through our family of origin or through our moral communities like churches, moral reasoning is a part of a lifelong struggle to win friends and influence people. It's Dale Carnegie. And he says Dale Carnegie didn't study psychology like he has, but was a master of moral psychology and how he dealt with people and how to win them to your side. So what his prescription for a lot of these things is that we try to reason with people, with the servants. We try to convince them that our solution is the correct solution, rather than building relationships with people and taking small steps over a long period of time to transition the elephant to move, rather than the rider to try to make a movement. So that is the underlying issue that we face in this country with our rhetoric, is that we are stuck riding an elephant, which is our intuitions and our passions and our parties and our different kinds of things. We get running on this thing, and we are creating reasons in order to stay with the elephant.
Why can't you ditch the elephant?
You can't, because our passions and our intuitions have been built up over a lifelong a life of time, and we don't change that much. To make a transition takes a humongous effort.
I would say that he described it as you are the elephant. 90% of you is an elephant, and 10% is the rider just hanging on. And if the elephant changes direction a little bit, the rider's going to go with it. But you can't get rid of the elephant because that's you.
It is.
That's your intuition.
It's your intuition.
Yeah.
Intuition is built in, and we're using a metaphor in which you say, well, why don't I just jump off the elephant? But the intuition is part of who we are. And it's been imprinted on us over a lifetime. So years and years of imprints have been put on here. You wouldn't want to get rid of the elephant. Because you want to have intuitions. You want to have passions for things. That is not the issue that we're talking about. You don't want to say, oh, I don't want to be a part of these groups. These groups actually give you a lot of strength and they give you a lot of security, and it's where we evolve to, is these groups are important for our existence. So it's not that we don't want to have passions, and we don't want to have intuitions, and we don't want to be organized into groups. It's that we expect that everybody is on the same elephant that we are, and they aren't. And so, Carol, you have something?
I'm trying to think of a better word. From a science standpoint, scientific reason is part of the process of trying to test hypotheses, but looking at things logically. With reasoning here, I keep thinking excuse, but that's not quite the right word either.
Yeah, he would actually say, even scientists.
And scientists can be swayed.
Scientists are swayed. They can look at it and look at information. If you have two scientists equally trained who have a different intuition about a problem, they will manipulate the reasoning to make it work. And that is, it's not,
But I would say that again,
it's rationalizing. Yeah. There's some rationalization that's going on here. It is in some cases can be described as an excuse, not always. These things are playing out in everything that we do. So we're talking about politics, particularly in this group, but it can relate to all of these different things in which we have intuitions about it.
Yeah.
So that we are all in this cycle, and it's the way we're built. It's not. It's like this is psychology. This is not an unnatural thing. It is. But if you can understand, this is what I found when I was reading this book. I was like, oh yeah. If you can understand some of the psychology, it helps you get out of and see. Remove yourself from this thing and look at it from a more global view. Let's say in the clouds view, looking down, on the balcony view, if you're looking at a Heifetz or whatever. You can look at it from a variety of perspectives. If you can get out of this and look down and see what's happening down there, it actually helps you understand the other side, which is we categorize into into two sides, but there's actually a lot of different angles here. People get clumped into groups that they might not actually agree with everything that's in there. So those are some of the things that we have here. Now here's a couple of quotations that might help you get some ideas of what I'm talking about. Reason can take us to almost any conclusion we want to reach. Because we ask, can I believe it? We want to believe something. But must I believe it when we don't want to believe? The answer is almost yes to the first, no to the second. So think about that quote for a second, because that quote is boiling down a humongous amount of stuff that we've got going on here. Second quote is, the worship of reason, which is sometimes found in philosophical and scientific circles, is a delusion. It is an example of faith in something that does not exist. I urge instead a more intuitionist approach to morality and moral education, one that is more humble about the abilities of individuals and more attuned to the context and social systems that enable people to think and act well.
For one thing, from somebody who's taught mathematical reasoning, you reason from assumptions. And in the course I taught, you list those assumptions very explicitly. But in the rest of life, we don't do that.
When you're in a logic class, you have defined terms, many defined terms, and you're working from that. When you're having a conversation with somebody that you see on the street, you do not have the same set of assumptions built out and defined very accurately linguistically. You don't. It's just not the way it is. So we have a law professor here. Would you agree with that?
I would agree that law is not independent of context and social systems.
What did Robert say?
So Robert said that law is not independent of
The context and social systems in which it takes place.
in the context and social systems in which it takes place. So law is almost I think that maybe if we lose this, I'm more triple than that. So that is so that's I mean we create systems there that are playing out.
Wolfie has his own assumptions.
Wolfie's going, and when that string gets out there, we can take somebody out. All right, so there's more.
Wolfie has been in education.
So knowing the elephant and rider, getting the idea that our intuitions are really driving our reasoning, is a first step in this process of trying to figure out how do we deal with our political rhetoric and what's happening in our country, and may lead to, hopefully at the end of this time, at the end of our sessions, that we can figure out maybe some things that we can do personally, but also things that we can advocate for on a more global level to reduce the tension that exists in our rhetoric. But the next one of his in the book, his metaphors is, there's more to morality than harm and fairness. And that is, I mean, harm and fairness are where we categorize a lot of what we think of as morals. And they are certainly pillars of morality, but there are more than just harm and fairness. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So the weirder you are, and I've always considered myself to be generally weird, but the way he defines weird in this way is that you are Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. So if you live in countries that are in that particular group, you are weird. Okay?
But D is not capital D. I mean, it's like you're living in a republic.
That's correct. Correct.
Just to
Very helpful.
You're not in the party, the Democratic Party. You're living in a country that has elections and is working through things like this. Yeah. But if it that would even be weirder if I did not capitalize it in that way. Okay. So the weirder you are, the more you perceive a world full of separate objects rather than relationships. So this is something that has been going on that you could, I mean, in our lifetime, we have seen these things change. And they are becoming less